there, folks. This is what I'm talking about, the lacquer thinner epoxy mixture here. See how it's watery? We took 3 full scoops of this, of the Part A epoxy down there, and 3 full scoops with this blade here, and mixed them all up. So it's 6 total scoops, 3 from this can, 3 from this can. That's the Part A and B. We put 1/3 of a gallon of lacquer thinner in here first. Then we mixed up the epoxy over there on that board. Then we put the epoxy in here. And it starts out like a big mud ball, you know, because the epoxy is like mud, basically a big old clump of thick mud. And then we mix it until you see there's a little piece of epoxy on the end of there. That's not mixed all the way. When you drag your mixer across there and come up, you shouldn't see epoxy. It should just be 100% liquid. So this is very liquid stuff. And then we paint it on, and you can see it leaves like this epoxy here, of course, is a gray color once it's mixed. This is just standard marine epoxy. It's not the non-sag, because we don't need non-sag. This is watery anyway, and it's a lot easier to mix this because it's more thin and blends into the lacquer thinner more easily, more willing. See, I can come up like that. There's still a little bit of thickness there, but as you can see, we've coated this part of the hole. This one partially. I'm putting a heavier coat on the line of nails. You see these nails here? These lines of nails here. And I'm dabbing a thicker coat on there just so I want to be sure to seal those nails good, because they go all the way through to the inside of the boat, or to the 1x3 or 1.5x3, whatever we milled that piece of side wood to. They go right into that. And so we wanted it to be nice, and I think we got it, folks. Did we? I don't see any epoxy coming up. It's just liquid. Okay. Then we take a standard brush, just like that, and we brush it on, just like paint. You brush it back and forth, cover all areas. It's thin, watery, so it'll try to run if you're on a non-flat surface. So again, you want to see if you can make it flat, and then it just lays in. And when it's in mixed good, once you get it good, then you'll see like a gray streaks. You see that gray streaks like stuff? You see, let me get some light on it. See, like that? That's how you know you got a good coat on there, when it's streaking like that. This center line here is where I drizzled it on here to cover up the nails. So I want to leave that thick and rich and chocolate. And then be sure to get all your sides and everything. So we got the next batch, and see, the front's not done yet of this hole. The center, we got the center hole done pretty much, and somehow we got our lacquer, our enamel paint on this surface here, which we don't want. We didn't want, it wasn't supposed to happen, but when you roll the roller on the end of it, smears paint. You can see it's curling all up from the lacquer thin, and it was melting the enamel paint there all over. That shouldn't have been there. But anyway, we got the center here done. We need to add a little more. You can see that's a brownish, showing the wood through, and this is more grayish, hiding the wood. This is the level of coating we want, is on this end. So when we go back to the front there, I'm going to double up on that. And then after this one dries, and this is epoxy, so it's got a time, and it'll get hard and thick. So you just let it get hard and thick in an hour or so, and then you can recoat. Pretty much, I think that's what we're going to shoot for. We're going to try to get as many coats on here as we can today, so that we can just continue, because after this we can epoxy primer. And epoxy primer also has a timer. It's going to harden in a certain amount of time, depending, because it's a catalyst epoxy mixture, and so you only got so much time to put this stuff on. So she's going to work on this side, I'm going to work on that side, and we're going to get back to getting her done. So Paradise, this one hasn't been done at all here, so you can see it's just bare wood all the way. So I gotta finish this front half, and if we're letting it just run down on the paint, because after we're done, we're gonna repaint everything, because like I said, the paint was soft when we flipped it, and so you can see the tires rubbed some of the paint off. So we're gonna have to sand it and repaint all those blemished areas there where the paint got rubbed off, because like I said, it seems hard, the surface seems hard, but it's really, we put it on full strength, we didn't dilute it at all, and so it takes longer to dry. We could have waited a week, but I don't want to wait a week. I can repaint that in a day, less than a day, half a day, 2 hours, 3 hours. I can repaint all the scuff marks, and then like I said, we're going to repaint the whole thing anyway. That was the plan. So it'll cover all this stuff that we drip. So back to painting. Painting epoxy on Paradise. Hey everybody. We just got our final coat of epoxy lacquer thinner on the wood, and we did it as thick as we could until we ran out of lacquer thinner, but we had extra, so we just went back and slathered it on. It's kind of dark on this side. Let me go to the other side. There we go. But what happens if you put it on normally, you can see kind of the brownish through the woods there. You can see some. So it's not as thick there on that hole. I think this hole we got it on even more thick. A lot more gray. Yeah, see, a lot more gray. That's what I wanted on both holes. But again, we ran out of day. Ran out of paint, and we ran out of daylight. It's now 5:30. And the sun's going down. Is it 10 after? No, it's 10 after 5. That, like I said, that second hand's so big it looks like a minute hand. But yeah, I'm proud of it. Tomorrow we'll see what it looks like. But for now, we are as good as we can get. But I'm real happy with this. And again, you can clean your brushes, the lacquer thinner, enamel, and lacquer thinner epoxy brushes in water. You can clean your hands too, even though it's a lacquer thinner compound. The epoxy and stuff for some reason works with water. Yeehaw! Makes it easy. Clean your hands perfectly well. Perfectly clean. And I just rinsed them. I just stick them in there and rub them around, and voila, you're done. So folks, we will be back mañana. So anyway, I'm impressed. Paradise, let me get back and give you a full wide shot of an upside down boat that's been lacquer thinnered and epoxied. There it is, folks. Paradise. Now let's get the brush cleaner. She's doing a good job. Paradise out. Hey, we are starting the epoxy primer coating now. Yesterday we did the epoxy lacquer thinner mixture to waterproof the wood, and this again is the best waterproofing I've ever seen. You can put anything else on it you want to, but if you don't do this first on the bare wood, you could have water penetration into your wood at some point in time somewhere along the line. But this stuff seems to just be phenomenal. And you saw earlier how I mixed it, so you can, if you need to do it, you can do it yourself. So now we've got epoxy primer, which is again a two-part. You've got your catalyst and your other part, whatever the other part is. It's Boysen. We're using Boysen because we found Boysen is the best. That's your catalyst there, and it's like a 1 to 3 mixture. 3 of these to 1 of those parts, and then we just put it on here. We're rolling it on. That's all you have to do. You could brush it, but rolling is just way faster, and it does a really good job. It lays on a nice thick coat, and everything we're doing is nice and thick. So that's the game plan here. So I'm doing this center part. She's starting on the bow over there, and then we'll see how much we can do. We got about half a gallon, and we'll see if we can cover all the bottom pieces here, all this square footage, square meterage if you're not a footage person. So we'll be back with more from my paradise on Italian Island.
Epoxy primer time. Paradise out.
We got most of it epoxy primered. Working on the last few bits here. We used about 1/4 of a gallon to do this here, and we're almost out. I'm in the dregs of the bucket right now. We just stick our roller down here. We're not using one of those roller pans. You just stick it in here and slather it around, and then watch for drips. Stick it on there, roll it like that. Get it all up in those cracks, because the cracks is where the water's going to go in. Any angle, corner, any little place like that where you see there's a little bit, hit it. And then the number one area that you really got to watch out for, because this is really the weak spot on the plywood, is this edge. Because that's where they joined everything. And I'll be honest with you, some of it will peel off. And that is where water, we'll say egress. I think that's the right word. There's ingress and egress. So one of those two. So we double, triple, quadruple layer these edges here, so that we don't let any water into the plywood, because once it goes into the edge of that, it just spreads out like a sponge, and then you got water damage that you can't even see. I'm going to double up on this edge here. We're going to hit this back corner where we got some epoxy. Roll on down here. Get this one. And you can see where you apply it. It'll turn white. The first layer, you can kind of see through it, and you'll kind of see, because like I said, this is like a marine, the gray marine epoxy. And up there, I can see in the little corner there, that crack, that 90-degree there's a dark spot. That is where it didn't get painted. See right there? Missed a spot there too. So you gotta follow up on this stuff. And I'm gonna mix up another batch, because we're out of paint right now. So I'm gonna mix up one more batch, and we're gonna double coat it, and that should be perfect for a double coat. And that's what we're doing, double coat everything, double coat the epoxy lacquer thinner, double or even triple coat. We don't care. What we care is that the boat doesn't get any water in the wood, because that is a recipe for rotten wood, folks. Water and wood, you hear me, that's my story I preach. Water and wood don't mix, and believe me, they will mix. But you'll be sorry. I'm gonna touch this up too. We painted this with enamel, but I'm just going over it, because this is the underside of the boat that's just constantly getting splashed. There's a little hole right there I need to fill. Right up there, I can see it. Okay, folks, so we are ready to mix the next batch here. And it's simple to mix. You just put you pour the paint in there, or whatever the epoxy stuff is. The stuff that is this is the brand here, 2200 epoxy primer white, poison, of course. And again, here's your hardener right here. So we're gonna pour what's left of this and that into the bucket. Honey, bring the bucket. You'll be able to see this firsthand. Here, honey, your hands are clean?
Yeah.
Okay. No, they're not really, but. Okay, so my handy dandy knife. The best knife for popping tops on paint cans I've ever seen. That shape of the blade. I use this part here to pop it up, pry it up. Okay, so we are, and for some reason there's no handle on this, so you got to hold it by hand. And I'm going to stir it slightly, because it was a little thick at the bottom earlier before I did stir it all up. But you can tell, just come up like that, and if you see lumpy stuff, you need to stir it a little bit more. I'm calling that good. put this stick in here. I'm gonna pour all what's left in here because we're just gonna double, quadruple, triple coat whatever paint we got left in here. We're putting it on the boat. And you can try to, if you had a brush, you could kind of help brush some of that out of there. I didn't do it because it ain't gonna make that big a difference. And then here's the stuff. It's clear, like a yellowish clear. I guess not clear, it's yellowish. See that? Like a, looks like turpentine, but of course it's a chemical hardener. It's catalyst for the epoxy. So we get all that out. And the more of this you put in there, the faster this stuff is going to harden and thicken. So, but if you put too much, you're not going to have enough for the rest of your gallon here. And when they give you this can is only this full. So this can plus this is 1 gallon. So now we mix it. You can see it's a yellowish white. And you mix it until it's pure white, snow white, in fact. And then mix it a little bit more, just because you're a perfectionist. And then you slide it on the next load. After this, we do epoxy. Actually, epoxy and fishnet. This next step will be the Poor Man's Fiberglass. So you gotta stay tuned for that. It's epoxy plus fishnet plus epoxy. It's a sandwich. You sandwich fishnet in between epoxy layers. Okay, we're done. There you go. I'm gonna not waste this primer that's on this stirring stick. On my roller. And these rollers are probably going to be shot afterwards, but they're only 20 pesos or so, so that's 40 cents. 40 cents for one of these rollers. For me, that's disposable. All right, folks. Paint. Epoxy primer. Then the fun stuff. The challenge is going to be that Poor Man's Fiberglass, but you'll have to watch that to see how easy or difficult it rolls out. So, paradise out. Okay, we got epoxy primer mission. I think it's accomplished. We put 2 layers on. You can see it's really thick. You can't see the wood through it, and that's when you know it's thick. And it's creamy looking, nice and creamy looking. And after this, we put epoxy on. Epoxy Poor Man's Fiberglass. You could have hit that a little bit better. And up here too, this section here doesn't look that heavy, but everything's getting a double layer of epoxy on it. So before you get to any of this work we've done, you got to go through the 3/16 layer, inch of epoxy, roughly, I'm guessing, will be the finished product here, with the fishnet in there too, as a kind of like a, maybe I've said this before, but like rebar in concrete, it minimizes cracking and stuff like that. So there's a little piece of brush fuzz. The foam brushes melt and dissolve, and then you get pieces of foam everywhere, and it's just a complete disaster. But the fuzzy brushes, they do drop little pieces of fuzz every now and then. And if you don't get them up, they'll just turn hard with the epoxy. And if you're not sanding it, which we're not sanding right now, we don't care. It's just another thing for the epoxy to grip through. So I don't care how much texture we have on the surface of this, just as long as you know, it helps the epoxy coating adhere. And that's our game plan. Make that epoxy coating stick. Make every coat you got that you're coating it with stick. So, yeehaw.